All right, so what you guys are looking at is a Allison 1000. This is out of medium duty GM trucks, so like 2500, 3500 up, so Silverados, Sierras, usually behind the 6.6 Duramax engine. I picked this transmission to show you guys because it's a pretty simple transmission to learn on. So what you're looking at is the transmission stripped down, obviously, to just the mechanical portion. So I've removed the case, the pump, all the clutches, torque converter, valve body. So you're literally just looking at planetary gears, and input, output, and intermediate shafts. So this has 3 shafts. So you guys remember at the end of the video, we said we use 3, usually about 3 planetary gears in an automatic transmission. So this one has 3. These different rollers you guys are looking at are the ring gears for each planetary gear set. So what do we want to do to planetary gear sets to get our desired outcome? Well, it just doesn't even have to be the ring gear, right? Just hold one of the 3 components and drive another one, and that creates an output, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way this one works is there are 5 sets of what we call clutch packs, which we'll talk about these more in detail too. But let me show it on video. So 5 sets of clutch packs, so you guys can see that. What you have is layers of a steel disc, and this steel disc splines to the case of your transmission, so this disc will never spin. This disc is stationary the entire time. And there's alternating discs and clutches. These clutches spline to the outside of these ring gears. And there's also 2 more clutches up here, which we'll talk about in a second. And these spin, and when this clutch is applied, they hold these corresponding components stationary, right? That's what we want to do. We want to hold something, drive something, and then we'll get our desired output. Okay. So like I said, there's 5 clutches on this transmission. There's one that's going to go right here inside. You guys can't really see it, but it's in here. It's a small one. There's a slightly bigger one that goes around this carrier right here. And then there's one for each ring gear. So I want to show you guys this, see if you guys can see this. This is called a clutch application chart. And so you're going to be able to get these for any automatic transmission. This is for this one. And so what it does is it tells us what clutches are applied in whatever shift mode or gear we're in. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to pretend to be the clutches. I'm going to hold whatever part and spin the transmission, and you guys will be able to see how the output changes. Okay, so for first gear, and let me run through it one more time so you guys know we have 5 clutches and they're going to go in this order. It's going to go backwards for you guys from right to left. So the small one in here is 1. This one right here is 2. This one's right here is 3. This is 4. And this is 5. So we're going to have 2 clutches engaged for each gear selection because we're driving one and we're holding one, right? And our 3rd component is going to be our output. So for first gear, C5, which is number 5, is being held, and C1 is being held, which is this little, if you guys can see, this little carrier right here in the middle. So this C1 connects this piece to the input shaft. So instead of turning the input shaft, because I don't have like 3 hands, I'm going to turn this instead. But that's all it's doing, is it's connecting it to the input shaft. And one other thing to note is this piece right here is always going to be connected to what's called the clutch module assembly. And I'll show you guys so you can kind of picture it. So I took this off so you guys can see what's underneath it. But this normally sits right here. And as you can see, these teeth in this spline to this. So whenever this spins, this is going to spin with it. So you'll see me spin this too because it's normally mechanically connected. All right. So holding C5, holding C1, and I'm going to turn C1. And so if you look at the output shaft, you see how it's spinning really slow, right? So what's first gear? Underdriven, right? So torque multiplication. So even though I'm spinning it kind of fast, our output is slow because we're trying to get the vehicle moving. We're having torque multiplication. So this trans is kind of cool because it literally just kind of moves down. So for second gear, we let go of C5 and we grab our next ring gear, which is C2. And we're still, C1 still applied, so that's this one. So I'm turning this. So you see how the speed picked up a little bit? Can you guys see that? Okay. So for third gear, we let go of C4 and we grab C3. Once again, moves right down. So we have C1 and C3 applied now. And so you guys see how it picked up speed again? It's a little bit faster. So what you guys are looking at is right here, the output shaft. This is where speed's changing. Okay, so now we go to fourth gear. So fourth gear lets go of C3 and it grabs C2. C2 is this guy right here. So C1 and C2 are both applied. And so watch what happens to this whole mechanism when I do that. You guys see how the whole thing spins? What do you think? What do you think the gear ratio for fourth gear is? 1-to-1 or direct drive, right? Exactly. So yeah, it just locks this whole carrier and spins the entire thing. Okay, so fifth gear, we're not using C1 anymore. Instead, we're using C2 and C3, so these two. So this is going to be a little bit hard because now we've entered overdrive. So this transmission has 2 overdrive gears. So we're losing torque multiplication and we're picking up speed. So this is actually going to be physically harder for me to turn. So I should still be able to do it. It's just a little bit harder. Yeah. So you guys see how it's spinning a lot faster? So this carrier slid off for me. Let's see if I can get it back on. Okay. Can you guys kind of see that increase in speed? Yeah, it's pretty hard to turn. Okay, then I'll attempt sixth gear, which is going to be even harder. What I need to get, and I'm going to do it eventually, is get some bearings for this, so it makes it easier to spin. So sixth gear is going to be still C2. Yes, question?
So it's harder to turn because there's less torque, right?
Yeah, so we're losing torque. We don't have torque multiplication. So it's physically harder for me to turn this. So picture, have you ever driven a mountain bike with multiple gears? If you start out in a high gear in a mountain bike, it's very hard to get moving, right? But once you get moving, you don't have to pedal fast for the bike to move fast. Same exact situation here. It's going to be a lot harder to get this moving because we're losing torque and sacrificing it for speed. Okay, and sixth gear is going to be C4 held and C2 held. Or C2, yeah, C2 held. And so we're gonna, I don't even know if I can do it. Barely. So you see I'm barely turning it, and the output shaft's turning a lot. So that's actually a gear ratio of 0.61.